The Blues Fan Forum podcast is presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media Group. I-70 strives to bring you the best sports coverage in the tri-state area. Find them on Facebook or at interstate70sports.media.
This is Jordan Bennington, and you're listening to the Blues Fan Forum podcast.
On the ice, under St. Louis city lights, where the Blues play with all their might. Jordan Cairo, fast on the attack, but defense falters, gotta cut him some slack. In Robert's arms we find our glory, his skills shine, the team's best story. St. Louis Blues, we wear the crest. In Jordan Bennington we put our trust to the test. On the ice we fight, and we must, for the city we love. In the blue note we'll thrust.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 163 of the Blues Fan Forum podcast, your source for Blues news, views, and fan interviews. I am your host, Dakota. Unfortunately, I am guestless today, but I'm going to tell you who we're brought to you by in just a second. We are brought to you by Scooter's Coffee. I'm going to read the ad real quick. Blues Fan Forum podcast is presented by Scooter's Coffee. Blues fans can score amazing drinks like the signature Caramelicious, served hot ice or blended with world-class espresso, fruit smoothies, and Scoot Energy infusions, and so much more. Scoot on around to our drive-thrus on Highway 143 in Troxler Way, in Highland, or in Vandalia Street and Indiana Avenue in Collinsville, or any other 30 locations in the greater St. Louis area. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Scooter's Coffee. Like I said, I am guestless. I know Jacob is out tonight. My guest was going to be my wife, Brennan, but she is currently feeling under the weather. So for the next 45 minutes or so, I'm going to walk you through what's been happening in the NHL. We're going to talk about some NHL awards because that's coming up as well, because when that comes up, that means we're close to the Stanley Cup Finals, which is also very exciting. But we got a huge list of things to talk about. I'll run you down what we're going to do. If you're joining me, thanks for joining me. Again, I'm soloing this tonight, so please hit up in the comments. I'd love to hear some discussion topics, maybe address some questions you guys might have. But topic of discussion going forward, we're going to talk about Vegas Golden Knights. Currently, they're up 3-0 in the Colorado series. We're going to talk about Carolina and Montreal. That might be a barn burner. Currently, Montreal is losing that series 2-1. Carolina has the upper edge. We'll talk about Game 3 and who might have won or who should have won that game. We're going to talk about the President's Trophy curse. A lot of hockey fans know and love how exciting winning the President's Trophy is, but also know it comes with some sort of a curse. So we'll talk about that. And then obviously the NHL awards. Before we get into it, I'm going to crack a cold one, and we're going to dive on into this. So first and foremost, let's talk about Vegas. If you see, it is the Golden Knights Fan Forum podcast. We have decided to hop off of the Buffalo Sabres bandwagon. Obviously, they had their, late exit due to Montreal. I've been a part of the Vegas bandwagon pretty much since they entered the playoffs. I've been rooting hard for them. I know I had a couple teams. I had my Vegas Golden Knights and obviously the Dallas Stars. Dallas Stars didn't fare very well. So now we have Vegas. Vegas series, again, we talked about this before, 3-0. Okay, let's go through every single game that they've played now. Right now, it's 4-2, game 1. All right, so Vegas ended up playing what I think might be their best game of the series. Put up 4 goals to Colorado's 2. I thought they were completely outmatched. Every level of the game, neutral zone, offensive zone, and defensive zone. I think they outmatched Colorado. I think Colorado came out flat-footed. I don't think they really knew what was going on. And Vegas played the Vegas Golden Knight way. I think my dad said it best the other day when I was talking about the series, that Vegas played a lot like St. Louis in 2019. St. Louis was by far the underdog in that entire thing, but I don't think any team that we played was really ready for what kind of game we were going to play. So you add Vegas's style to that. Colorado tends to play a 200-foot game. They like to, create odd man breaks. They like to utilize the neutral zone. They like to create rushes on the back end. You have a guy like Cale Makar, Demontays. Like they're probably some of the best defensemen in the NHL. The reason why they score so many goals is they utilize every guy that's on the ice. They use all 5 guys. With a guy like Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, Martin Nakis, Brock Nelson, Nazem Kadri. I mean, like the list goes on and on. They're a stacked roster. But Vegas came out and showed out in game 1 and beat them 4-2. Game 2 was a little bit better. I feel like it was more closely, matched. Vegas won 3-1. They like I said, they played a more closer of a match. The goals for versus goals against less. I do think Carter Hart has played his best series. I'm not saying that just because he has 3 consecutive wins, but coming into this series, Colorado basically had the edge, right? They're the best team in the NHL. We'll talk about them in a little bit about the President's Trophy curse, but they had the edge. They were the better team on paper. They're the better team just on the ice in general. They did miss Cale Makar and Mark Stone. Mark Stone for Vegas, Cale Makar for Colorado, the first 2 games, and you could see that they were missing that like lethal edge on the D. Like I said, 4-2 in the first game, 3-1 in the second game, and obviously Cale Makar enters game 3. That was by far the most exciting game. Now they're back in Vegas. I think Colorado goes 3-0 to start the entire game. The ice was completely tilted, has been tilted most of the game. And like William Karlsson said at the end of the game, what was your standpoint going into, coming out of the first and into the second period? He goes, we had 40 minutes. We already kind of put ourselves in a bad spot, but we had 40 minutes to work with. Vegas continues their, onslaught and goes 5-0. They score 5 unanswered goals. Colorado has no answer. Cale Makar, does what he can to try to put the team on his back. Nathan McKinnon blocks a shot, goes down for pretty much an entire period. So I feel for Colorado right now. If you're a Colorado Avalanche fan, like you're just like, what else do we need to do? They didn't really have a whole lot of answers. I didn't expect them to. Your team goes down 3-0, like Colorado is, and you're kind of really searching. Is it the goaltender? Is it the team? Is it the defense? Is it the offense? Colorado has no answers to those questions because you've been the best team on paper. We're going to talk about that in a second about the President's Trophy, but you're playing a Vegas team who they know how to win. They've been here before. The last 2 Western Conference teams to win the Stanley Cup are playing right now in the Western Conference Finals. Vegas won in 23, Colorado in 24, I believe, and then 25 and 20. No, maybe it was 22. I have that wrong. And then after that was Florida times 2. But if you're Vegas, this is being filmed on Tuesday night. This will air tomorrow morning. So when when you listen to this, we will all know the score of tonight's game. But if you're Vegas going into tonight's game, your idea and your perspective is we have to play the same exact game, only harder, because Colorado is going to come out and play the best game they have played this entire Stanley Cup playoffs. They have to. It's a win or go home. So it's very exciting. It's a very cool time in the NHL. Colorado went, and just kind of dusted its entire competition. I mean, if you look at it, they beat the Kings 4-0. They beat Minnesota 4-1. And now the tides have turned, and now Vegas is the one, putting the hammer down and beating Colorado 3-0. I don't expect Colorado to go down without a fight, but it's very, very concerning if you're a Colorado fan. You kind of beat LA. That we knew that was going to happen. Minnesota, we thought with the way they played Dallas that it would be a more competitive series. It was not. But man, oh man, the fact that Vegas is kind of single-handedly kind of, holding them by their neck to go 3-0. And tonight's the game that decides it all. Will Vegas move on to the Stanley Cup Finals, or will Colorado come back and force a Game 5? We all are wanting to know, and hopefully when you listen to this podcast, you're either, if you're rooting for Vegas, you're happy. If you're rooting for Colorado, you'll also be happy. So we shall see. Next round we're going to talk about, and this could possibly be the best round of the series. Who would have thought? Now, we did talk about this on the podcast last time. Jacob's mentioned it so many times. Carolina has had basically just minuscule mistakes. They beat Ottawa 4-0 to get to play Philadelphia. They beat them 4-0. They haven't lost so far. Then they run into a Montreal team who some people may say, why are they even here? Montreal had to beat Tampa. They beat Tampa in Game 7 to get here. Then they go and beat Buffalo in Game 7 to get here. Everybody's kind of holding their breath in Montreal. I don't know if they've taken a breath yet. And then they face, the Carolina team that everybody was like, holy shit, like they're running into a monster. And then you go Game 1, Montreal comes out. Now Carolina, this is what Jacob has mentioned multiple times on the podcast, that, hey, maybe Carolina had too much rest. I believe it was more like 11 days. I think it was like 11 to 12 days that they didn't play a single NHL game between them beating Philly to them facing Montreal. That's a lot of time off, especially in the playoffs when you are constantly on the grind. That's a lot. Like, you're not playing for almost 2 weeks. Now, I know that these are guys that are athletes, right? They basically could, do this in their sleep. But being a part of the NHL grit of the season and then having that much time off between actual NHL play. Now, these guys are practicing. They're staying loose. They're getting their legs moving. The fact that they came in and it looked like they were still at practice. So Montreal ends up beating them Game 1 6-2. Montreal played a very heavy game. Everything was kind of acting on all cylinders. Their defense was great. Their forechecking was huge. They had great neutral zone pressure. Their offense was great. I don't remember, really seeing too many turnovers by Montreal. But boy, oh boy, oh boy, that was a crazy game to start the series, having Montreal go up 1-0. Now you got Game 2. Carolina comes out a little bit better, edges out Game 2 and beats Montreal 3-2. And then you got Game 3, which, sad face, we all kind of wanted a different scenario, I guess. I'm pulling for Zach Bolduc and the Montreal Canadiens. Once a blue, always a blue. I know Texier is on that team as well, but I think he's done really well for that team, and I just want to see former Blues get, some success. So Game 3 goes to OT. I do think the officiating in Game 3 was a little touchy. There were some calls that I felt like didn't go certain teams' way that were just obvious. And I think that's something that NHL should be cracking down on, hopefully, in the coming years, is just more consistency when it comes to officiating. The same can be said for the Colorado-Vegas series. Like, there's maybe some not so great calls when it comes to goalie interference, the slashes, the sticks in the face, the tripping, the slashing. It's just, I feel like it is a little inconsistent over the course of the last, 3 or 4 games we've seen. Hopefully they try to cushion that a little bit. And when it comes to the playoffs, I feel like a lot of things should be let up a little bit. I feel like you should let them play. It's, they're in their asses off. Their livelihoods are on the line. Most guys go their entire career without winning the Stanley Cup, and I don't want to see the officiating get in the way. So Carolina goes and beats Montreal in overtime 3-2. There was an obvious tripping penalty that was missed on behalf of Montreal. Montreal definitely should have gotten the power play. Who knows what they would have done with that? But again, it leads me to believe the officiating should not and could not have some sort of like decision on what happens to the game. So just my 2 cents. I know I'm long-winded tonight. I'm guestless. I got nobody in the hot seat. So if you're listening, I appreciate it. Sam, our loyal listener, thanks for tuning in. And thanks for being a part of tonight's show. Hit me with some comments if you got them. Hit me with some questions if you have them too. I'd love to discuss, what you thought about the last two series. Obviously, we're all rooting for Vegas. Blues Fan Forum has now turned into the Golden Knights Fan Forum. So thank you, Jacob, for making that edit. The next thing we're going to talk about, and this might be a topic of discussion from here on out, depending on what happens in the next couple of years with the President's Trophy. But Colorado Avalanche, the team that everybody thought was odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup this year, their back's up against the wall times 1,000. So the President's Trophy curse, and I've heard about it, I've seen it, I've lived it, especially with the Blues, I believe in 2000 or 2001. Once you win the President's Trophy, the target that you had on your back only becomes bigger. Teams will play their best. Teams will intentionally try to play more aggressive, play a dirtier style of game to try to see if they can get you out of the rhythm, right? The rhythm that you carried on throughout the entire regular season, which got you to this point. And so the President's Trophy curse, Colorado, all right, so technically, let's talk about last year. Winnipeg Jets, right? Winnipeg faced the St. Louis Blues and put us to Game 7. If we win that game, obviously there's a lot of hypotheticals, but if we win that game, we knock out the President's Trophy and they don't win the Stanley Cup. Goes to this year. Colorado came in with so much hype. I think they're a very overhyped team. Also, fuck Stan Kroenke. Colorado comes in, huge target on their back. Everyone's favorite to win the Stanley Cup. They go ahead and dust LA in the first round, 4 games to nothing. Okay, great. Everybody's future bets that they placed at the beginning of the year saying Colorado is going to win it all, everybody's sleeping, nice and happy at night. Then they faced the Minnesota Wild, who had just dusted off the Dallas Stars in 7 games. And now everybody's like, oh, shit, this could be a great series. I was one of those people who were like, this could be the best series yet. Colorado takes them to town and, dusts them 4-1. Now people are like, yeah, my futures bet's looking even better. Now you face I would say a very tenacious, a very Blues-like Stanley Cup 2019 team in the Vegas Golden Knights. Somebody who's been here, somebody who's done that. They've won it before. What I would consider 2 great teams in the West are now facing each other. Vegas brought the heat and have now put Colorado on their backs 3 games to nothing. So if Colorado loses a series, they will be added to the list of people who won the President's Cup or President's Trophy and could not complete the, all-world, win. The last team that won the President's Trophy and went all the way to win the Stanley Cup was in 2013, I believe, by the Chicago Blackhawks. We hate the Blackhawks here on the Blues Fan Forum. Fuck the Hawks. But it's clearly it's been 13 years since that's been done, because what happens is as soon as you win the President's Trophy, you get everyone's best game. And the playoffs tend to be a different season. Doesn't matter what happened in the regular season. It just turns into something new. So whatever you take of that, it's clearly shown. Statistics don't lie. The Blues did it in, I believe, 2000. We were an early exit. Winnipeg did it last year. They were almost an early exit. They ended up getting eliminated. But besides the point, if you win the President's Trophy, it doesn't matter. They say it all the time. It doesn't matter how you start. It's how you finish. Well, if you finish as the President's Trophy winners, the idea is most likely you're not going to win it all unless you're the 2013 Blackhawks. I'm going to stop yapping for a minute, and I'm going to tell you where to buy stuff if everybody wants to go support our sponsors. All right, first one is Hughes Custom Design. Hughes Custom Design is a family-owned and operated small business in Maryville, Illinois. They specialize in laser-cut hand-painted signs. They have options typically upon request or complete any request of a custom job. I have a couple of them back there. If you can see the KC Chiefs one, the Cardinals, and the Blues, those are all by Hughes Custom Design. Great work. The back of them light up with an LED. Highly recommend checking them out for any man cave. This is my man cave that Jacob talked about flooding last week. So I highly recommend checking them out. They have great work. They're durable. I've dropped mine a couple different times, moving from house to house. They're great. They look great. I don't have them lit up, but they're great. Then we have Imprint Lab. Imprint Lab specializes in bringing your brand to life with custom laser engraved Richardson hats and vibrant custom sublimated metal prints. Whether you want it to make a statement with high quality headwear or showcase your designs on eye-catching metal art, we deliver precision, durability, and style every time. Elevate your brand with Imprint Lab, where your vision meets our craftsmanship. Or as Jacob likes to say, if you have shit and want it on shit, they're your people. All right, and our last one to shout out is Scooters. I could use some coffee. Tomorrow is a big day. I turned 30 years old tomorrow. So if you're hearing this on the podcast tomorrow on your drive to work, give us a listen, give us a follow. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Instagram. Give us a follow on behalf of me turning 30 and taking another trip around the sun. I'm going to need some coffee tomorrow because tomorrow's going to be a long day, if you know what I'm talking about. Scoot on around to our drive-thrus on Highway 143 and Troxler Way in Highland, Vandalia Street and Indiana Avenue and Collinsville, or any other 30 locations in the greater St. Louis area. That is amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast Scooters coffee. Now that I've talked about where you can buy stuff, now we're going to talk about who's winning stuff. So now we're going to get into the NHL. Sam, thank you for the birthday wishes. I appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in as well. Now we're going to talk about the NHL awards, my favorite portion of the playoffs besides the ass kickings upon ass kickings. I'm going to take a drink because I've been talking for a long time. All right, so let's talk about these NHL awards. I don't have the stats in front of me. Like I said, I'm a one-man band tonight. But I am going to run through who are the finalists. I'm going to run through what those awards mean typically. And then I'm going to try to go through who I think might be the winners or some notables who have been elected or nominated. All right. So the first one we're going to go with is the Hart Memorial Trophy. And the Hart Memorial Trophy just is basically the MVP of the league. The three nominees, and most of the time, I don't even like reading them because I know where they're going to be, season after season. And nobody on here is going to be shocked either. So your nominees are Nikita Kucherov for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Nathan MacKinnon for the Colorado Avalanche, and Connor McDavid from the Edmonton Oilers. Now, Connor McDavid did have 138 points to end the year, which I think is pretty incredible. And then you had Nikita Kucherov, who had the next most. He was at 131. And then after that was Nathan MacKinnon. So my choice, typically just, this is unbiased. I know I said I hate Stan Kroenke. I try to pick the guy that can do it all. And to most everyone's surprise, I picked Nathan MacKinnon to win this award. I know Connor McDavid is basically Jesus on skates. He can't do no wrong. He's a talented player. He is what my generation would be of Wayne Gretzky. But Connor, if you can't get it done in the regular season to put your team into a place to get it done in the postseason, I know these are regular season awards, so don't come after me. I know these are regular season awards, but if you can't put your team in a place, in a position to get it done, I think I'm back. A little technical difficulties. I just disappeared off the face of the earth. Now I'm back. So yeah, Connor McDavid, you got to put your team in a place to win and get you into the postseason. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Nikita Kucherov, I would say, falls second behind Nathan MacKinnon. Like I said, put your team in a place to win, but also put your team in a place to go to the postseason. Nikita Kucherov did. Unfortunately, they lost to the Montreal Canadiens. But for me, that goes Nathan MacKinnon, then Kucherov. McDavid, again, I know I saw the points. He has 138. But if you can't build around a guy, put yourself in a position to win, you don't deserve to win the league MVP. Please hit me in the discussion, hit me in the comments, hit me with some sort of discussion that tells me differently, and let me know who your choice would be to win the Hart Memorial Trophy. Next guy, or next group of guys, is the Vezina, my favorite. Everybody knows that I love goaltenders. I talk about them too many times. I will say, I will give a birthday shout out to Chris Wagner, captain of the Thunderbirds. He's 35 tomorrow. Congratulations on the Springfield Thunderbirds, going as far as you did. Great job. We all were rooting for you up down here in St. Louis. Coach Otter, great job putting the boys in a position to win. Unfortunately, we came up a little bit short. But Springfield, great job. Great job by coaching the team as best as you could when you did. And I'm excited to see what the youth and the rookies do for the Blues coming soon. The Vezina. We have Ilya Sorokin from the New York Islanders. You have Jeremy Swayman for Boston and Andrei Vasilevsky for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think the odds-on favorite to win this is probably going to be Sorokin. I think Sorokin's statistics speak for themselves. That's my pick for the NHL's best goaltender. Swayman had a great season, and so did Vasilevsky. Vasilevsky's always going to be at the top. He's just an absolute unit. Tampa's found themselves a world-class goaltender, and most likely, barring anything crazy to happen, will probably be an NHL Hall of Famer. That one was quick. Next is the James Norris Memorial Trophy. James Norris goes to the best defenseman in the NHL. The nominees or the finalists for this award: Rasmus Dahlin. Then you have Rasmus Dahlin for Buffalo, Cale Makar for Colorado, and Zach Werenski for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, Zach Werenski, I believe, played for the Olympics. Cale Makar, same. And I believe Dahlin as well. I could be wrong. But all three of these guys are unstoppable with the puck in their hands. Rasmus Dahlin for Buffalo. You've seen him play absolutely insane over the course of the last couple games in the playoffs. Obviously, Buffalo's not in it anymore, but the dude just constantly shows in and shows out. Cale Makar, same way. With a guy like Nathan MacKinnon on the front and a guy like Cale Makar on the back and the Lumberguard and net, you can see why Colorado was so dominant. Cale Makar used to be, I think, former Hobie Baker Award winner. He's just the best, I think, best defenseman in the NHL by far. He's my pick to win this award. He could change a game in a matter of seconds. He goes east to west, north to south. He could play a 200-foot game. I know I don't like the Colorado Avalanche right now, but right now their players are like, you can't not pick those guys. Looks like I'm having technical difficulties. I apologize. We're going to get through this and hop off. So it might be a very short podcast tonight, but I believe the weather is affecting my internet service. So pardon me. So that was the James Norris. Now we're going to go to my favorite, and that is the Calder Memorial Trophy. This goes to the best rookie in the NHL. We have Ivan Demidov for the Montreal Canadiens. We have Matthew Schaefer for the New York Islanders. And you have Beckett Seneca from the Anaheim Ducks. Now, Beckett might fall a little short because Schaefer and Demidov just had an absolute unit of a year. My personal pick was Matthew Schaefer. As a defenseman, that dude was just an absolute unit for that team. Came in and just took the Islanders by storm. Demidov has obviously helped his team in more ways than one. They're currently playing the Carolina Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Final. My pick is going to be Matthew Schaefer, but I would not be surprised if Ivan Demidov won that as well. All right, moving on. And again, if you're coming in late, My apologies. This is a solo unit tonight. We're talking NHL awards. We're talking Vegas and Carolina, Montreal and Colorado. We're talking everything hockey. If you got a comment, please let me know. If you got any questions about the games and the series at hand, I'd love to discuss. So after the Calder, we're going to go to the Ted Lindsay Award. The Ted Lindsay Award is the most outstanding player by far. Now, I know this might shock most of you, but your nominees or finalists are Connor McDavid, shocker, had 138 points. Nikita Kucherov, second in points. And then Macklin Celebrini from the San Jose Sharks. My pick, and I really hope he gets it because this dude was just an absolute stud. We all knew he was coming out of the draft, but he has been the reason why San Jose Sharks might be a force to be reckoned with coming in future years. Macklin Celebrini, I believe, had 115 points and just was an absolute unit. He played his ass off this year. San Jose was playing for sellout crowds. And I believe he was the most outstanding player in the NHL. Again, shocker to most. Connor McDavid had 138 points, but Macklin Celebrini he did things that were just people looked at and were like, there's no way. I believe this kid's like 19 or 20 years old. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the stats in front of me, but he's a young kid who just scored 115 points in the NHL for a team that wasn't that great. So that speaks for itself. Next we have on the list after the Ted Lindsay is the Frank J. Selke Trophy. The Selke goes to the best defensive forward. These are some great nominees. Again, Colorado heavy because, obviously Colorado has the best team by far up and down the roster. Like I said, they have the lumberyard and net. And then offensive and defensive stars, they are just stacked. So you have Anthony Cirelli for Tampa Bay, Brock Nelson for the Colorado Avalanche, and you have Nick Suzuki for the Montreal Canadiens. I still think Colorado has a great team. My pick is Nick Suzuki. He's always been talked about as the best defensive forward, but his stats and his play hasn't always led people to believe that. So my pick is Nick Suzuki. Obviously, his team is facing the Carolina Hurricanes in the playoffs right now. There's a reason why that team is in there. If Montreal doesn't play good defensive hockey in the ozone or vice versa, they don't get there. And they don't get there unless Nick Suzuki's on the roster. I know Nick Suzuki has not done well in the playoffs currently, but he did well enough to get them to where they are right now. So my pick is Nick Suzuki. I would be very shocked if he didn't win, but I would say Brock Nelson is a very good pick as well. Same with Anthony Cirelli. So my pick, Suzuki. Wouldn't be surprised about Brock Nelson either. Colorado is just a loaded unit. Then you have the Jack Adams, my favorite award outside of the Vezina. And rightfully so. These head coaches, they're the first ones to fall on the sword if their team's going bad. And they're the last to be recognized when the team's going good. So the Jack Adams Award nominees are I'd take a sip real quick. John Cooper. He has been a part of the Jack Adams Awards for a while now. He's a great coach. The proof is in the pudding. When you put your team in the playoffs, year in, year out, you're going to be up towards the top of the Jack Adams Finals Award. Then you have Dan Hughes, the head coach for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then Lindy Ruff of the Buffalo Sabres. This one, everybody knows how much I enjoy, former Blues. One of the former Blues coached by Lindy Ruff is Tage Thompson. And as you can see, Buffalo did absolutely incredible at getting into the playoffs. I think the last time that the Buffalo Sabres won a playoff game was when they were coached by Lindy Ruff too. So for Lindy Ruff to get this team back to the playoffs, just for that organization alone, it means a lot. I think for those players, it instills a lot of trust that he had with those players, but what he built up over the course of 82 games. So getting into the playoffs alone is a great, a check off on the box for Lindy Ruff, but he's a storied coach. He has a lot of success. My pick goes to Lindy Ruff. I think he deserves this. I think the fan base and the coaching staff that was around him deserve this. It is a singular goal or a singular award, but I do think it involves more people than just one. So my pick is Lindy Ruff. Then you have the Lady Byng. The Lady Byng trophy is for high standard conduct and sportsmanship. All three of these are just great choices all in all. There's one that I wasn't so sure about, but my pick was a little biased, but we'll see. So finalists are Cole Caulfield, Montreal, and a lot of the same guys, or a lot of the same teams are in these because their teams were really we have Cole Caulfield, Kopitar. Played. He wasn't really a dirty player in my mind. Just imagine like those runs with Drew Doughty and Jonathan Quick, Anze Kopitar. Like the Kings team was stacked. So my pick is Anze Kopitar to win that award. Field might be the one that ends up pulling this one away. But my choice is Anze Kopitar. Last couple awards we're going to read off tonight. The Bill Masterson Memorial Trophy. This goes to the person that had the most perseverance, usually called the Comeback Player of the Year award. For the Winnipeg Jets. I think my pick is probably going to be Jonathan Toews. Just to come back. I know he signed a deal with his hometown team in Winnipeg. Really cool story. He ends up doing pretty well, helping that team. I know they didn't do really well in the West, especially in the Central, but still to see a guy like that come back. I know he's been a storied Blackhawk his entire career, but to come back into the NHL and play, and he deserves that award, I think, the most. So my goal or my pick is for Jonathan Toews to win. Would love to know everybody else's choices in the comments if you're still here and still listening. All right, so the last one is the Jim Gregory General Manager of the Year award. Great choices on this list. The first guy is Bill Guerin, former Blues legend for the Minnesota Wild. Then you have Chris McFarland for the Colorado Avalanche. Boo, 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 boo. And then you have Pat Verbeek for the Anaheim Ducks. So for me, my choice is Pat Verbeek. I mean, you take a guy who has not coached in the NHL for quite some time, and Joel Quenneville. You put him with a roster who we all kind of thought they had the potential, but we didn't really know if they had what it took to kind of, get over that hump. They were pretty okay last year, but they weren't great. Anaheim comes out of the gate, and they were playing decent hockey. I think for a while they were almost leading the Pacific. But hey, you take a team with Joel Quenneville, and anything can happen. Joel Quenneville coached the Blues, coached the Blackhawks. Like he's taken any team he's touched and put them into a position to win, or even get into the playoffs, or even have better luck in the postseason. So Pat Verbeek, just an absolute genius, putting that team together, trusting in Joel Quenneville, and getting the job done. I know they didn't go all the way, but that's something to build on. That puts a lot of trust in your team. That puts a lot of trust in your fan base. That you were able to get the job done and put the team in the playoffs. So for me, Pat Verbeek gets this. I know Bill Guerin is probably going to be looked at as the guy that should win it all. Even Chris McFarland. McFarland has put an absolute unit together, and they won the President's Trophy. Bill Guerin basically made some crazy deals at the deadline, getting Quinn Hughes. So we shall definitely see how that works. So my pick is Pat Verbeek, and that is it on the NHL awards. The last thing I'm going to talk about is my predictions for who is going to win the East and who is going to win the West. And then I'm going to get out of here because I've been rambling on for the last 40 minutes. So I'm going to take another drink, wash down the sorrows of the bad internet connection, and then we're going to talk about my predictions because everybody wants to know what I think, right? All right. And then positive vibes I'm seeing I need to be wishing for Michael Bushinger. He needs ACL surgery. Yikes. Good luck. Positive vibes, because that's going to be one hell of a recovery. So my predictions going into who's going to win the West, who's going to win the East. I believe that Carolina will end up winning the East. Montreal just might out of steam. I think Carolina had too much time off. I think that's why they kind of ate the bullet in game one. Carolina is my pick to win the East. It'll be a great series overall. I do think that game might end up going 6 games. It'll be fun to watch. I know I'll be watching along, and hopefully, Carolina pulls it out because I do think Rob Brindamore deserves it. Carolina deserves it. That dude has worked to coach that team and put him in a good spot to be in a winning position. So Carolina gets that. I would love to see Sebastian Aho in the Stanley Cup Finals and see what he does, and Seth Jarvis. It would be a fun and exciting final with them in it. Then we move to the West. As much as everyone knows, I am a Vegas Golden Knights fan. We are the Golden Knights Fan Forum podcast. I'm going to have to go with my gut, and I'm going to say that Vegas cleans it out tonight, and they put up an absolute slaughter fest. I think tonight's game is going to end up being like 5-2, same like it was in game 1, I believe. So my pick for them, or my pick for the West, is that Vegas beats Colorado. Unfortunately, Colorado, you've met your match, and Vegas finishes you off. Congrats on a great season. Unfortunately, you're going to add your name to the history books and put yourself with a lot of the other teams that couldn't get it done who won the President's Trophy. So for that, great job. Congratulations. The Blues will be hunting your ass next year with the absolute unit that Jim Montgomery's putting together. And as far as I'm concerned, you have a huge target on your back, and I believe the West is going to be – I believe the Central Division in the West is going to be the greatest 4-way battle we've ever seen. Between the St. Louis Blues, the Colorado Avalanche, the Minnesota Wild, and the Dallas Stars. I believe those 4 teams are going to finish all going to at least fighting for a playoff spot, maybe even locking up both wildcard positions. So my pick is Vegas. So the Stanley Cup Final preview would be Vegas versus the Carolina Hurricanes. My pick is going to be Vegas. If that does, in fact, happen, mark my words, and you've heard it here first, folks, Blues Fan Forum people, I believe Vegas will win this in 6 games, and Vegas wins 4-2 series. They will bring another Stanley Cup back to Las Vegas. So that is my picks. Those are my choices. Would love to hear you put some stuff in the comments. If you have any questions about tonight's podcast, my DMs are always open. Would love to talk shop. Would love to talk NHL hockey. I've been itching for more hockey and more Blues news related things. Unfortunately, we're a little quiet this offseason, but that's my picks. Hopefully the Blues are in the playoffs next year because it'll make these podcasts way easier. So Vegas Golden Knights, Carolina Hurricanes, that's my pick for the Stanley Cup. Hopefully we'll find out more tonight. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. If you aren't following along with us, we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. You can listen to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. But until next time, folks, let's go Blues. Go Knights, go. And I'll see you later. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.